Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Sense8 Season 2, Episode 1, a Christmas special. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Sense8. So if you haven't seen Sense8 up to the Season 2 premiere, then you don't want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. So, and if you're thinking, wait, what do you mean Sense8 Season 2? What? Then you might not be aware that Netflix has released the first episode of Season 2 as its own little special thing. So all of Season 2 hasn't been released, just as one Christmas special, which is 2 hours long, so it's like a movie. Where the rest of Season 2 will be released in May. So they're giving us a little preview. And I have my theories about that. I think it's because they had originally planned on releasing Sense8 in December. So they planned for the first episode to be a Christmas episode. So because they knew it was going to be in December, but because of production issues and everything like that, it got delayed till May. But the first episode was still supposed to be Christmas. So, and I think they decided, the business suits or whatever, and the creative minds as well, that they wanted to have a little preview to get people a taste of Sense8, because Sense8 Season 2 is coming out in May of 2017, and Season 1 came out in like maybe June, July, something like that. I think it was June of 2015. So basically Season 2 is not coming out till 2 years, so they skipped a year. So I think that's why they're having this little Christmas special, to give you a taste, to keep you occupied, because it's been so long. Now, if you haven't been keeping up with the buzz and stuff, I didn't know the specifics, but can't remember the specifics, but apparently there was a lot of production issues with Season 2, and there's even been talk of canceling the show entirely, because apparently the show is running into a lot of issues, a lot of creative minds not getting along, and a lot of networks or money people, and just a lot of sort of clashing. Now, from what I'm not an expert on this, I could be wrong, but from what I heard, they pretty much solved the issues, and Season 2 will not be canceled, or they won't cancel the show entirely. But it did force them to push back the release, because they kept pushing it back and they kept pushing it back. So that's why we're not getting it until May. And who knows? Like, they haven't officially announced there will be a Season 3, so who knows? Maybe Season 2 will be it. But we will get a Season 2 with, I think it was 13 episodes, or however many the normal amount are. But whether or not there'll be a Season 3 is still up in the air, and I suppose that also has to do with how well the show is received and that sort of thing, how well Season 2 is received and stuff like that. So the creators of the show, the guy, I can't remember his name, but the guy who did Babylon 5 and the Wachowski siblings, they had a plan to do 5 seasons. So it is possible that they won't be able to finish that plan if the show gets canceled. And so, getting into the episode itself, the first thing that shows that there's these production issues is that there's been a recast. The actor who plays the character, now I can't remember his name, sorry, but the character in Africa who drove the Van Damme bus, he's been recast. And I think I don't know, it's been a while, but I think I remember hearing something about there being disputes with that actor in particular, and how he didn't get along or had money excuse or contract or some sort of disputes. And so they had to get rid of him and cast another actor. And this is very noticeable. In fact, in this episode, they tried to play it off as he just shaved his head. So when his friend sees him for the first time, it's like, oh, wow, you look so different. You shaved your head. But really, it's an entirely different actor. In fact, it took me a little while to catch on. Like, I thought it was just the same guy who just shaved his head. But I was like, no, wait a second. That's a totally different guy. And alright, so I have mixed feelings about this, because the actor was actually not very good for this role. I mean, if I agree with their decision to recast him, because the other option would just be to kill him off screen and be like, oh, this guy died in between seasons 1 and 2. And that, I think, would be worse. See, it's always a pickle you're in with shows like this and Game of Thrones and long-running shows that have long-running storylines, is that when you inevitably have actors who leave or disputes and whatnot, and so you're forced with the choice: do we kill them off, or do we write them off the show some other way, or do we just recast them? Now, Game of Thrones has recast a lot with its minor characters because it's based off of novels and wants to stay true. There's some cases, like with the actor who played the Ilan Payne, who had a cancer's issue with cancers and stuff. They simply wrote, they just didn't have him in the show anymore. They didn't kill him off. They didn't make an excuse for him not being there. They just simply didn't show him anymore because he was kind of a minor character, so it was easy for them to do that. Like, the only thing was he was on Arya's list, and all of a sudden she just stopped talking about him, and that's mainly because he's not going to be in the show anymore. And the same thing with Old Nan, the actress who played her, died, but again, Old Nan was a really minor character. Other characters like the Mountain and Dario, when they had issues with their actors, they just recast them. And I think, like, the Dario thing I talked about because it seemed like those actors are two totally different styles, so it seems like a different character entirely. So that kind of didn't matter. The Mountain, like, he didn't say much, didn't appear much, so I think they get away with that. Although the one that they cast in season 2 was a bad choice, which is why they recast him a third time, which they finally got it right. A lot of people saying they liked the first Mountain the best, but hey, the actor quit, so what are you going to do? You have to recast or write the character off, and I think the character was too central to the show, but it was easy to recast him because he didn't appear all that much. But anyway, getting back to Sense8, in this case, I agree they had to recast because this is a main character who's one of the 8. He's one of the main 8. Like, if it was one of the supporting characters in one of the 8 storyline, then I could see them just killing them off screen or simply not mentioning that character again, saying, oh, she moved to Chicago or some bullshit like that. But with this one of the 8 who's connected to the other, they can't just kill him off in between seasons. They have to keep this character in the show, so they had to recast. But I think this actor is totally wrong for the role. I think they should have done a better job casting. I think they should have cast someone else. Like with Dario, the two were totally different, but the replacement for Dario was really good. Even though he has a different feel, and some people may prefer the first Dario, he still works as Dario. Where this guy, I don't think he works in this character. I think the other guy was just so much better. He fit that character more. And maybe I'll get used to him, and I'll get used to it. But the same thing happened in Black Sails, where they had this actor in season 1 who, I think he had cancer or some disease or health reasons, had to leave the show, and they recast him. So I totally understand why they recast, but the actor they chose to replace him was so entirely different, and he wasn't very good in that role, and it was a bad casting choice. And I think that's the same thing here. That is a bad casting choice. So this really threw me off, and every time I saw this character on the screen, it just irked me. I don't know, who knows? Maybe once the entire season 2 is released, I'll get used to it and I'll be okay with it. But I don't care that they recast it, but they should have done a better job casting. Hold on one second. Anyway, moving on to the rest of the episode. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I'm not that big on it, to be honest, because it seems like they were trying to do too much with it because they realized it was going to be a 2-hour special. I don't know. I have no idea at what point in the production they realized this, but they were trying to... just too much happened in it. I think it didn't have focus. And I think that would be an issue that's very likely to creep up in a show like this where you have 8 different characters. Now, I thought they balanced this really well for the most part in season 1. Of course, for the most part, it's a Netflix show. I saw it all at once, so I was judging the season as a whole. Maybe there was an episode here and there where it wasn't balanced that much, and so maybe that's why I had an issue here, because I'm judging it as an individual episode, not as an entire season. But it did seem like they didn't do a very good job of having a singular theme. This episode just seemed all over the place, like they were trying to do too much. Like it felt like, even though it was only 2 hours, it felt longer than that. It felt like, oh, it's still going, like they're still adding in, and it's hard to keep track of. Like they kept changing focus too much. Like, oh, we're happy, oh, now we're in trouble, and it just didn't have focus. There were parts of it I did like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think the main theme that they played with the most that came off was the gay actor, and excuse me, I don't have their names in front of me, but his storyline, the Mexican actor, his about being outed as gay and the discrimination he was facing, that was very powerful. I liked the way they played with that, and the way they sort of, how that fed into some of the other storylines, like Nomi, I remember her name, who is still hiding out from the cops, and other stuff like that was interesting. And so yeah, I didn't quite, to be honest, I didn't quite follow the German thieves, and again, sorry for not remembering their names, but the German thieves storyline, maybe it's been a while, it's been over a year since I watched season 1, so I think people who've seen season 1 more recently were probably easier to follow that, but I kind of didn't really remember what was going on with him. I remember about his friend getting shot and stuff, but yeah, so that was kind of confusing, but it was okay, I guess. The Van Damme thing, again, as I said, I had no idea what was going on, and I didn't care about the storyline. I was just distracted by the bad casting. But yeah, so it's mainly the Nomi and the Mexican guy's storyline, which was really interesting. Now, let's get into the Indian woman. I'm sorry I don't remember their names, but this character is useless, and I kind of felt this in season 1. I feel that in this episode even more. Like, I keep waiting for them to make this character useful somehow, or justify why she exists, why she's there. And I think if they are going to kill off any of the one of the 8 of the, then they'll have to call it Sense8 as a show. But anyway, if they were to kill off any of the ones in this little group, it should be her, because she's so, her character, like, she's an interesting character, like building her naivete and how she's unsure of herself, but her storyline is boring. Like, they don't do anything with her. She's just, and that whole thing in this episode about her breaking her husband's dick, that was stupid. I literally rolled my eyes at that, and I don't get what they're saying, because at first it was like her storyline in season 1 was interesting at first, when she was like, I don't want to marry this guy, and because of my culture I'm forced to marry him. But now just saying that she does want to marry him, and they actually are playing him as a pretty nice guy, and that her sort of off and on relationship with the German guy, and how she's, I think it's dumb to have 2 relationships within the Sense8, first of all. So I hope they sort of lay off that, because they do the Will and the Iceland chick DJ. Sorry, I can't remember their names, but they have that already, and so to have 2 relationships, it just becomes a bit wishy-washy. But anyway, her character, yeah, was really a low point for this episode for me. In fact, this whole show, she's on really thin ice with me. I don't know why they have her. And so getting to the Will and what's her face, DJ chick, I talked about this in my season 1. I know my brother totally disagreed with me here, but in my season 1 review, how I think they make this, the villain is way too powerful, and this bothers me. I think this is not a very dynamic story. Like, all he has to do is look at you and you lost. Oh, come on. I mean, some people make comparisons. Oh, what about Medusa? Medusa looks at you, turns you to stone. I mean, but they make Medusa work, because for most of the stuff I saw Medusa in was like she's a guardian of something. She's an obstacle to overcome. Where this guy isn't really an obstacle to overcome. He's like an antagonist who is constantly after you. And I think that's a different dynamic. And it's just, it doesn't work for me. And I think they need to find a way, in order for season 2 to work, they need to find a way to make him less powerful, because he's just too powerful at the moment. And and that's what bothered me with the storyline with Will in this episode, is that he's constantly, it was interesting, like I didn't totally hate it. It was interesting that he had to be on drugs and be like that other woman. Sorry, I didn't research this very well. I'm pressed for time, so I'm not going to know anyone's names. Sorry about that. Anyway, so it was interesting that he was sort of emulating that, and the whole like thing they played up with the relationship with his father and how he's turned into an alcoholic because he left. That was really good drama. I like that. That really worked for the show. But overall, like the whole thing of the guy's in his head now just because he looked at him, it's too much. In order for season 2 to work, they need to find a way to take that back to because he's just too powerful at the moment. I'm sorry. I know if you disagree, that's fine, but that's just the way I see it. So their relationship, their thing was good for this episode, but they need to move beyond that for season 2. And that's the other thing. It's like I still have high hopes for season 2. I think there's a way season 2 could be good. I think this episode was mainly just a cog in the machine, and that's fine. But because of production and outside influences, they try to play it off as its own thing, and I don't know if it quite works in that regard, because they're just too over the place with it, and they try all like the whole hokey Christmas. Oh, we're celebrating Christmas, like that was cheesy, and they did too many. Like they did it worked in season 1 where they'd have these moments where they all get together and they feel connected and they're all Christmas time, whatever, and it worked for season 1, but they did too many of that in one episode, and I thought it didn't work. It was too much. They need to use it more sparingly. And the other character I forgot to mention, who I'm sorry in advance, don't remember her name. She was a Korean chick who was in Cloud Atlas. I love that movie, by the way. Anyway, her storyline was great. I loved her storyline. She was probably one of my favorite characters at the moment. And the way that they worked with those, brother sending guys to kill her, and she used the other Sense8 people to fight them off. I loved that. That was a highlight of the episode to me. But, okay, I have to talk about the orgy scene, because I didn't mention his orgy scene before. I know my brother did his review, and he hated the orgy scene, but I think most people liked the orgy scene in season 1, and to be honest, it didn't really bother me. I didn't feel that strongly about it either way, but this one sucked. This one was horrible. It was like a bad copy. I mean, they tried to do it more grand. Because the season 1 one just had Min and Nomi, and this one had like all of the Sense8 and some of the supporting characters as well. But it was just so half-assed. It just came off as really half-assed and has, this is gonna shock people, and I think, other than my brother, I think most people actually like the orgy scene in season 1. A lot of people were like, talking about it because of shock value. And so it seemed like this was just a way to shock people and be sexy. And it sucked. It was stupid. It was horrible. And it was really brought the episode down overall. And having scenes like that and the Christmas stuff and some other stuff, it's just too much for one episode. This episode would have been much better if it was 1 hour, and a lot of these things that they use would be better if it was spread out throughout the season like it was in season 1. Like a lot of these little things I thought were fine for season 1, but I don't know. I still have high hopes for the season 2 going forward. Like, I do think that German guy's storyline is getting a bit interesting. But also, like, to me, I was expecting them to move a bit more, push the story more forward with them collectively, specifically like with Will's storyline. But it seems like he's the only one that's dealing with that evil guy who can Medusa guy. It seems like everyone else is off in their own world dealing with all their own shit, which I'm not that interested anymore, to be honest, except for the Korean woman. Her stuff I'm totally on board with, but the Indian woman stuff and the Van Damme guy, I could care less, frankly. Oh, and of course the Mexican guy stuff is still interesting, but I think that worked for this episode, but I hope they don't overplay it throughout season 2. I don't know. Okay, so I'll give my rating for the Christmas special, and I think I'm going to give it, if I did 0.5s, I'd do 6.5, but I promise I'll never do 0.5, so I'll give it a 7. It's on the light side of a 7, I'll just tell you that right much. 7, very good. Yeah, because there's stuff about this episode I loved. I love the Korean woman's storyline of her being in prison, and the German guy's storyline, I thought worked well, and it was interesting that Will had the relationship he had with his father, and having to become an addict in order to avoid the guy. That was pretty interesting, and of course the discrimination that guy faced and how they dealt with the discrimination was awesome. And it really hit home, having the difference between Naomi, who when she came out or whatever, it wasn't that big of a deal as it was with him because of different cultures. So it was interesting that the way they played it. So there's you might be like, oh, you're just complaining about the episode. But no, there's a lot of things about the episode I did like. But as I said, overall, it was a bit of a mess. They tried to do too much in one episode. And some of the stuff, like the orgy stuff, was just horrible. So I hope season 2 gets better than this. If it doesn't, it could end up failing. And apparently there's a lot of production issues, so maybe that had an impact on that. And of course the recasting was awful. But hopefully, I'm very hopeful that season 2 will get better. I'll have to wait all the way to May to find out. Well, anyway, those are my thoughts on Sense8 season 2 premiere, the Christmas special. Thanks a lot for watching, and if you enjoyed this, please be sure to subscribe, because I do plan on reviewing Sense8 season 2 when it comes out. I'm still not sure how often, if I'll do one for each episode, or if I'll review the episodes in batches, or if I'll just do one review for the entire season. I'm not sure. I'll have to figure that out once it airs. But in the meantime, you could check out some other videos I do on shows like Vikings, Star Trek, and Game of Thrones, of course. And so be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. Thanks a lot for watching.